ಶಂಕರ ಗುರುದೇವಾ ವಂದೇ ಶಂಕರ ಗುರುದೇವಾ. ಪಾವನ ಚರಣ ತೋರೈ ಕರುಣಾ ಜ್ಞಾನಾಮೃತ ಪೂರ್ಣ. ಪಾವನ ಚರಣ ತೋರೈ ಕರುಣಾ ಜ್ಞಾನಾಮೃತ ಪೂರ್ಣ. ವಂದೇ ಶಂಕರ ಗುರುದೇವಾ ವಂದೇ ಶಂಕರ ಗುರುದೇವಾ ವಂದೇ ಶಂಕರ ಗುರುದೇವಾ. ನಿರಂಜನ ಸತ್ಯಸ್ವರೂಪ ಪ್ರತ್ಯಗಾತ್ಮನೇ ಆನಂದರೂಪ. ನಿತ್ಯ ನಿರಂಜನ ಸತ್ಯಸ್ವರೂಪ ಪ್ರತ್ಯಗಾತ್ಮನೇ ಆನಂದರೂಪ. ನೀಡೈ ಘನ ಜ್ಞಾನ ಬೋಧ ಬೇಡುವೆ ನಿನ್ನೊಳು ಶಂಕರ. ನೀಡೈ ಘನ ಜ್ಞಾನ ಬೋಧ ಬೇಡುವೆ ನಿನ್ನೊಳು ಶಂಕರ. ವಂದೇ ಶಂಕರ ಗುರುದೇವಾ ವಂದೇ ಶಂಕರ ಗುರುದೇವಾ ವಂದೇ ಶಂಕರ ಗುರುದೇವಾ. ಆತ್ಮಸ್ವರೂಪವ ಬೋಧಿಸಿ ಎನ್ನ ಮುಕ್ತ ಮಾಡು ನೀ ಶ್ರೀ ಗುರುದೇವಾ. ಆತ್ಮಸ್ವರೂಪವ ಬೋಧಿಸಿ ಎನ್ನ ಮುಕ್ತ ಮಾಡು ನೀ ಶ್ರೀ ಗುರುದೇವಾ. ನಾರಾಯಣ ಪಥದ ಬೋಧ ನಾರಾಯಣ ಪಥದ ಬೋಧ ಬೇಡುವೆ ನಿನ್ನೊಳು ಶಂಕರ. ಬೇಡುವೆ ನಿನ್ನೊಳು ಶಂಕರ. ವಂದೇ ಶಂಕರ ಗುರುದೇವಾ ವಂದೇ ಶಂಕರ ಗುರುದೇವಾ ವಂದೇ ಶಂಕರ ಗುರುದೇವಾ.
सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं। शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। ॐ भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैस्तुष्टुवागुंसस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः। स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति। ॐ अथाश्वलायनः भगवन्तं परमेष्ठिनम् उपसमेत्योवाच अधीः भगवन् ब्रह्मविद्यां वरिष्ठां सदा सद्भिः सेव्यमानां निगूढां यया चिरात् सर्वपापं व्यपोह्य परात्परं पुरुषं याति विद्वान्। तस्मै स होवाच पितामहश्च श्रद्धा भक्तिध्यानयोगादवैः न कर्मणा न प्रजया धनेन परेणनाकं निहितं गुहायां विभ्राजते यतयो विशन्ति वेदान्तविज्ञानसुनिश्चितार्थाः सन्न्यासयोगाद्यतयः शुद्धसत्त्वाः ते ब्रह्मलोकेषु परान्तकाले परामृतात् परिमुच्यन्ते सर्वे। विविक्तदेशे च सुखासनस्थः शुचिः समग्रीवशिरः शरीरः अत्याश्रमस्थः सकलेन्द्रियाणि निरुध्य भक्त्या स्वगुरुं प्रणम्य हृत्पुण्डरीकं विरजं विशुद्धं अचिन्त्यमव्यक्तमनन्तरूपं शिवं प्रशान्तममृतं ब्रह्मयोनिं तथादिमध्यान्तविहीनमेकं विभुं चिदानन्दमरूपमद्भुतम् उमासहायं परमेश्वरं प्रभुं सब्रह्मा सशिवस्येन्द्रः सोऽक्षरः परमस्वराट् स एव विष्णुः सप्राणः सकालोऽग्निः स चन्द्रमाः स एव सर्वं यद्भूतं यच्च भव्यं सनातनं ज्ञात्वा तं मृत्युमत्येति सर्वभूतस्थमात्मानं सर्वभूतानि चात्मनि सम्पश्यन् ब्रह्म परमं याति नान्येन हेतुना आत्मानमरणिं कृत्वा ज्ञाननिर्मथनाभ्यासात् पाशं दहति पण्डितः स एव माया परिमोहितात्मा शरीरमास्थाय करोति सर्वं स्त्रियन्नपानादिविचित्रभोगैः स एव जाग्रत्परितृप्तिमेति स्वप्ने स जीवः सुखदुःखभोक्ता स्वमायया कल्पितजीवलोके सुषुप्तिकाले सकले विलीने सुखरूपमेति पुनश्च जन्मान्तरकर्मयोगात् स एव जीवः स्वपिति प्रबुद्धः पुरत्रये क्रीडति यश्च जीवः ततस्तु जातं सकलं विचित्रम् आधारमानन्दमखण्डबोधं यस्मिन् लयं याति पुरत्रयं च. Right. So Lord Brahmaji is giving the technique to gain the highest knowledge. So what is the example used? Atmanam aranim krutva pranavam cha uttararanim jnana nirmathana abhyasat pasham dahati panditaha. So we have to do the churning. Jnana nirmathanam has to be done. So what are the aranis? Lower cup is the mind. Upper one with the stick is the pranava. Then you have to churn. In the stable mind, churning has to be done. So yesterday we were discussing how this churning has to be done. So pranava represents the waking, dream and deep sleep along with the silence which is pure consciousness. So after having described the waking state, the dream state and the deep sleep state, Lord says this consciousness is the very Ādhāram, the very support for all the three states to exist. So yesterday we were discussing the entire waking world is seen in the waking mind. The dream world is seen in the dream mind. And all the world dissolves when there is no mind. So when the mind exists, the world is there. When the mind doesn't exist, the world is not there. So therefore, what should be the conclusion? World depends on the mind for its existence. The world has no separate existence of its own, independent existence of its own. Because the mind exists, the world exists. So the world enjoys a borrowed existence, not an independent existence. When the mind is there, world is there. When the mind is not there, world is not there. This technique of analysis in Vedanta is called Anvaya Vyatireka method. The example given is the fire and the smoke. Yatra yatra agnihi tatra tatra dhumaha. Whenever the fire exists, the smoke exists. Whenever the fire is not there, smoke is not there. Therefore, smoke depends on the fire for its existence. So, on the top of a hill, if you see smoke, what is the inference? You are not seeing fire, you are only seeing smoke. So, from that smoke, you infer that fire is there, though you are not seeing the fire. In the same way, Anvaya means when one exists, the existence of the other. Vyatireka means when one doesn't exist, then the other also doesn't exist. Anvaya means presence, Vyatireka means absence. So, in the presence of the mind, world exists. In the absence of the mind, world doesn't exist. Therefore, the conclusion is, world depends on the mind for its existence. Now, does the mind enjoy absolute existence, independent existence? We come to know that mind is nothing but thoughts. All these thoughts exist in consciousness, because I am conscious of my thoughts. So, since consciousness is the support for the mind, we can say mind has existence only when there is consciousness. This consciousness is none other than my true self. Therefore, mind has existence only I exist. When I exist, the mind exists. When I don't exist, my mind doesn't exist. Therefore, what is the conclusion? Mind depends on me, the consciousness, for existence. So ultimately, what is the conclusion? The world and the mind has no separate existence, no independent existence. It depends on consciousness for its existence. Therefore, this consciousness is the Ādhāram. See the term used in the 14th verse. Ādhāram. Ādhāram means support, substratum. Consciousness becomes the substratum for the world and the mind to exist. Right? Now, if this is the substratum, then naturally it has to be proved that this consciousness exists in all the three states. If it is the substratum, if the world and the mind, both of them are playing on consciousness, so naturally it would mean consciousness has to remain in all the three states. Now let us analyze. In the waking state, is there consciousness? Yes. We are conscious of the world. We are conscious of our experience. So in the light of consciousness, we are seeing the waking world. So naturally, consciousness is there. It is our experience. In the dream, is the consciousness present? Again, we are conscious of the dream world and dream experiences. So in the dream also, consciousness is present. In the deep sleep state, is the consciousness present? In the deep sleep state also consciousness is present, because in the deep sleep state, what is the experience I have? My experience is I don't know anything. Right? So nothingness becomes the experience. Deep sleep becomes the experience. See the verse number 13. Tamobhibhuta sukharupam eti. He attained sukharupam. So sukha is my experience in the deep sleep. So therefore there is an experiencer. So therefore consciousness is present. Because the nature of consciousness is knowing. Now what is it knowing in the deep sleep? It is knowing nothingness. It is knowing peace. So in the waking state, consciousness is present. In the deep sleep state, consciousness is present. In the dream state also, consciousness is present. So naturally, it has to be the reality, because the nature of reality is that it never comes and goes. The dream world goes when the deep sleep state comes. The deep sleep state goes when the waking world comes. Waking world goes when the dream world comes. One excludes the other. Both of them don't exist together. Everything comes and goes. There is one thing which doesn't come and go, which remains throughout, constant, unchangeable, undeniable. And what is that constant thing? It is consciousness. Therefore, it is Akhandabodham. See the term. Akhanda, unbroken. Bodham, consciousness. Unbroken consciousness. Everything else breaks. Everything else comes and goes. This is one thing which doesn't come and go. Therefore, this has to be the reality. So this consciousness is the substratum, Ādhāram. The very same consciousness is the Akhandabodham. It remains unbroken in all the states. Also it is Ānandam. How do we know consciousness is Ānandam? In the deep sleep state, there is no world, there is no mind, there is no sense organs, there are no experiences. Even then, if you are experiencing peace, what does it mean? The peace, happiness, joy which you experience in the deep sleep should belong to consciousness. Because there is nothing else which can give happiness. Other than consciousness, there is nothing else. So therefore, the nature of consciousness is happiness and joy. In deep sleep, nobody wants to be awake by somebody, isn't it? Everyone loves one thing, and that is deep sleep. Whether he is a jnani or an ajnani. The one thing which everybody loves is deep sleep. Why? Because there is sukham, sukharupameti. Sushuptikale sakale viline tamobhibhutaha sukharupameti. So what is the experience? Sukham is the experience. What is the source of the sukham? Consciousness itself is the source. So therefore this consciousness is called, what is it called? Ādhāram, Ānandam, Akhandabodham. This consciousness is the source of everything. Everything comes from this consciousness. Everything stays in this consciousness. Everything goes back into this consciousness. So what is the churning to be done? The churning is this. Whenever you see the world, our past habit is that we have given independent reality to the world. This is how we have lived. The world is real, I come and go. I exist in the world. These are all the misunderstandings. So how to do the churning? Whenever the mind says the world is real, immediately stop it. Say, I am real, upon me the world is projected. This is the way the thinking has to be corrected. Right thinking has to replace the wrong thinking. Because of our habit, that wrong thinking has become our nature. Jivatva bhava has become our nature. So we have been habituated in thinking that I am this jiva, this BMI. Now what is the new thinking which has to replace the old thinking? I am consciousness, not the jiva. As they say, I am not a human, what is that? I am not a human being with spiritual experience. I am a spiritual being with human experience. Beautiful way of putting it. So every time the wrong thought comes, you have to replace it with the right thought. That is called churning. So what happens in churning? Two surfaces rub each other. And when rubbing happens, there is friction. And when there is friction, there is spark. So what are the two things which has to rub? One is the old habitual way of thinking that I am the jiva. The other is the new thinking based on the scriptural knowledge. It has to rub because they are two opposite things. One says I am mortal being, the other says I am an immortal being. Two opposite directions. So when two opposite directions, thoughts, they meet with each other, there has to be rubbing. There has to be friction. There has to be struggle. And in this struggle comes the spark of knowledge. So here Lord Brahmaji gives a beautiful way, analysis, taking our own experience of waking, dream and deep sleep. Experience is the same, but the way in which you look at it, that is changed through the Vedantic knowledge. Experience alone will not make us wise. What makes us wise is our day-to-day experience analyzed in the light of the knowledge of the scriptures. That is what makes us wise. Experience is necessary. Coupled with it, that experience has to be analyzed, understood in the light of scriptural knowledge. Then everything is fine. So this mathanam has to continue. It has to go on for a long time. Because the wrong thinking channel has become so deep in us. So we tend to believe that we are this jiva, this limited jiva, this mortal jiva. That thinking is so deep, so therefore mathanam has to continue. How long? When does the mathanam stop in that physical example? The mathanam stops when the fire has become fully lit, isn't it? It is no more spark, the spark has become fire, then only the mathanam stops. In the same way, in the beginning of this, what you call, jnana mathanam, beginning you get sparks. Spark means what? Clarity. In the beginning, as this churning of this knowledge continues, again and again you are training your mind to think in the right direction. This training is a struggle. It is a subtle struggle. It is not seen by outside. No bulging muscles come, just like in gym. Muscles don't appear on the brain. You are struggling. So it is an internal struggle that is going on. It's a silent struggle. All spiritual struggles are silent. Nobody knows. So in this struggle, what happens? Now and then the spark comes. So in this struggle, long durations of darkness and now and then the sparks of knowledge. So now long durations of ignorance and now and then the sparks of knowledge comes. So in the same way, as you keep churning this knowledge within, slowly, slowly the ideas become clear to you. Every time you go through the experience, you analyze that experience in the light of the newly gained scriptural knowledge. So slowly what happened? The frequency of the spark starts increasing. As that what you call, irony becomes hotter and hotter, the frequency of sparks, the number of sparks increases. Meaning what? Clarity comes more and more. And slowly a time comes when this thinking, right thinking becomes natural to you and the wrong thinking is totally forgotten. Right? This takes time. So therefore, lot of patience is necessary. Spiritual practice needs lot of patience. Suddenly nothing happens. It takes its own time. Understanding is very easy. Conviction, little more difficult. But transformation takes lot of time. The more and more you consciously put forth effort, the more and more you will find this knowledge settling in you, transforming you. Conscious effort is necessary. Now the same topic is continued. Let us chant the next verse. Etasma jayate pranaha manas sarvendriyani cha kham vayurjyotirapaha prithvi vishwasya dharini etasma jayate pranaha manas sarvendriyani cha kham vayurjyotirapaha prithvi vishwasya dharini. Etasmat, from this. From this means what? Whenever we use a term this, what does it mean? It is very near. That means what? Far. That is used for far. This is used for near. Now it has come as a near. Etasmat, from this self. From you, yourself. Etasmat means from this. From this means what? From you. Even the distance is actually no distance. Even the term near is wrong. Etasmat. From this, jayate is born pranaha, the pranas. Manaha, mind. Sarva indriyani, all the sense organs. Kham, space. Vayuhu, air. Jyotihi, fire. Apaha, water. Prithvi, the earth, which is Vishwasya Dharini. This earth which supports everything. Oh my dear, understand, you are the supporter of that earth. Everything that exists in this world, don't think that you are in it. Realize everything is in you. You are the support for the entire universe. Entire universe exists in me. So who is supreme? I am supreme. So whenever you see a star which is shining somewhere, whenever you see a galaxy millions of light years away, what you should say? A Vedantic student will say, that galaxy is existing because I exist. That sun which is so huge, millions and billions of times bigger, that sun exists because of me. You understand? That's the way to see. A Vedantic student sees everything that way. I am that consciousness which supports everything. I am that consciousness without which nothing can exist. So how is the analysis? Any object in the world is a thought. Thought is in the mind, correct? And mind exists in consciousness. So what exists? Consciousness exists. Therefore the thought exists. Therefore the object exists. Anything in this world, it exists. But that existence is a borrowed existence. It is borrowed from me, the consciousness. Existence is the nature of consciousness. Therefore, I am the one who is giving existence to everyone. This is the way to think. From this, everything comes. Right? Now the next verse. A very interesting verse, which is the Mahāvākya. Yat param brahma sarvatma Vishwasyayatanam mahata Sukshmat sukshmataram nityam Tat Tvameva tat Yat param brahma sarvatma Vishwasyayatanam mahata Sukshmat sukshmataram nityam Tvameva tat. Yes. Each mantra in this Upanishad is brilliant. So it is one Upanishad which is fit to get by-hearted. Right? Now the following verses also you will see. Now what is being said? Yat param brahma. This supreme Brahman, supreme reality, which is Sarva Atma, which is the self of all beings. Vishwasya Ayatanam Mahata. It is a great Ayatanam, support for everything, for the entire universe. This supreme Brahman, which is the self of all beings, is the very support of everything. Sukshmat sukshmataram. It is subtler than the subtlest, the subtlemost. Nityam, eternal. Oh my dear Ashwalayana, oh my dear child, Tat Tvameva. That is you. That is you alone. Tvameva tat. You alone are that. That is you. You are that. Mahavakya doubly asserted. Right? Why is it repeated twice? It is repeated twice to negate any possibility of Amshā-Amshi sambandha, part-whole relationship. Suppose if it is said, Tvameva tat, you are that. Correct? So, you may misinterpret it as you are a part of that. To give an example, all cows are animals. Yes or no? All cows are animals. But that doesn't mean all animals are cows. There is a Amshā-Amshi sambandha, part-whole relationship. Cows are a part of the animals. One part, a small species. If something has to go both ways, tat tvameva tat, if it has to happen, then there cannot be a part-whole relationship. It has to be absolute identity. It has to be a perfect identity. Vishishta Advaita people, what do they say? Jiva is a part of Ishvara. And what do the Dvaitis say? Dvaita philosophy, what do they say? When it is said Tat Tvam Asi, they say tasya Tvam Asi. You are his. You are not he. You are his. They misinterpret all these things. Now here is a statement coming, what you call, like a bullet, like a lightning. Tat tvameva tat. Now here you have no choice. You have to have the absolute. Now this is an equation, right? Which is true in both the ways. And in both the ways it is possible only when there is absolute identity. We are not against Dvaita philosophy. We are not against Vishishta Advaita philosophy. Dvaita philosophy is also right from their own standpoint. Yes, from the standpoint of the body, mind, intellect, I am different, God is different. As a part of a creation, yes, I am a part of the whole. But here what he said, now this is called Advaita philosophy. Advaita means that God is you. You are God. Full stop. Now let us analyze this statement. Now this is an equation. What does it say? Tat Tvam Asi. Tat means that. Tvam means you. Asi means equal to. So you are that means. So there is an equation, isn't it? What is the equation? You equal to that. Jiva equal to Ishvara. This is the equation. Now let us do some mathematics here. So when do you use an equation? In mathematics, we never use an equation when things are apparent, very clear. For example, 7 equal to 7. Do you use equation there? You don't have to use an equation there because it's very evident. Also, you will never use an equation when there is no equality. 7 equal to 8. You can't write it. Right? So, in these two cases, you don't use an equation. When do you use an equation? When superficially things appear unequal, but in depth, they are equal. Then only equation is used. For example, 2 raised to 4 equal to 16. Now, LHS, what does it say? 2 raised to 4. 2 is a different number, 4 is a different number, and on the other side you have 16. Totally different number. So, different numbers are there. Apparently, there is an inequality. Right? So, whenever there is a superficial difference, but in depth there is equality, then only we use equation. Now let us come to this equation. What is the equation now we have? Jivaha equal to Ishvara. The individual is equal to God. Jivatma equal to Paramatma. This is the equation. Now, superficially, this equation can never be true. What is the nature of Jivatma? Alpatnyaha, Alpashaktiman, Alpavyapi. Alpatnyaha, little knowledge. Alpashaktiman, little power. Alpavyapi, of finite existence. This is the definition of Jivatma, isn't it? We know what we are. What is the definition of Paramatma? Sarvatnyaha, Sarvashaktiman, Sarvavyapi, omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent. Now, how can you make this equation? Tat Tvam Asi means this stupid Jivatma is equal to that omniscient Paramatma. How can you make this equation? So therefore, analysis has to be done. So what is the analysis? What is Jivatma? Now start analyzing. So in mathematics, what do? First take LHS, left hand side, and then derive. Ultimately, what you have to prove? LHS equal to RHS. Hence proved. All those things are there, isn't it? So first take Jivatma. What is Jivatma? Jivatma is none other than consciousness identified with body, mind, intellect. Consciousness identified with body, mind, intellect is Jivatma. To put it technically, consciousness identified with Sthula, Sukshma, Karana, Sharira. Gross, subtle, causal bodies. Consciousness identified with the three bodies is the individual, which is Jivatma. What is Paramatma? Consciousness identified with the totality. Consciousness identified with the gross, subtle, causal world. Sthula, Sukshma, Karana, Prapancha. That is what? Paramatma. Now, Jivatma, consciousness plus BMI, or consciousness plus the three bodies, that is Jivatma. Now, in this, what is true existence? Consciousness or the BMI? What only exists? Consciousness alone exists. BMI is the name of a form, that's all. It has no existence of its own. Prakriti has no existence of its own. Matter has no existence of its own. It is a borrowed existence, borrowed from consciousness, which alone exists. Right? So ultimately, what does it boil down to? Consciousness plus BMI. BMI has no existence. What exists is only consciousness. Similarly, Paramatma. What is Paramatma? Consciousness identified with the entire world. The world again is nothing but matter. It has no existence. What exists is only consciousness. So LHS equal to consciousness, RHS equal to consciousness. Therefore, Tat Tvam Asi. Got it? To put in another words, with respect to the essence, Jivatma is none other than Paramatma. Wave equal to ocean. Is the equation true? Wave equal to ocean. Is the equation true? You cannot answer this. You have to first ask from what standpoint? Wave can never be equal to ocean. But from the standpoint of water, from the standpoint of the essence of wave equal to essence of ocean equal to water. So they are equal. But with respect to the shape, size, they cannot be equal. So when something is equated, you have to ask from what standpoint. That's important. Chair equal to table. Is it right or wrong? From what standpoint? Chair cannot be equal to table, but chair is nothing but wood with a name and a form which has no existence. Table also is nothing but wood plus name for a form name and form has no existence. What exists is only wood. So from the essential standpoint, chair equal to table. Got it? This is how you have to analyze Mahāvākya. Now this is called Mahāvākya. Wherever there is a statement which equates the Jiva with Ishvara, any such statement is called Mahāvākya. So how many Mahāvakyas are there? There are infinite number of Mahāvakyas. Right? The 4 are the Mahāvakyas from 4 Vedas. That's all. Any Mahavakya. What is the definition of a Mahavakya? Any Vakya. Vakya means statement. Any Vakya which equates Jivatma with Paramatma is a Mahavakya. So this is also a Mahavakya now. Right? So how many Mahavakyas? Plenty. Right? Tat Tvameva Tat. That is you are that. God misunderstood is man. Man awakened to his highest reality is God. Now, O Bhagavan, how to practice it? Now, a little bit of practice. Next verse. Jagrat Swapna Sushuptyadi Prapancham Yat Prakashate Tad Brahmahamiti Jnatva Sarva Bandhaiv Pramuchyate Jagrat Swapna Sushuptyadi Prapancham Yat Prakashate Tad Brahmahamiti Jnatva Sarva Bandhaiv Pramuchyate. Yes. Now what are the 3 Prapancham we are experiencing? Jagrat, Swapna, Sushupti. These are the worlds which we experience. Now here Adi is also given. Very interesting. Jagrat, Swapna, Sushupti, Adi. Adi means what? Etc. Now what is this etc.? Only 3 worlds are there and that is mentioned and then etc. Many times people also do that. What is your qualification? So he says MA, MSc, etc. No, there is no etc. there. Only 2 degrees yet. Etc. means I don't know further. Many times whenever you don't get anything, you add etc. So in the same way, did Brahmaji add that way, etc.? No. Here Adi means the in-between states, which cannot be put either in this or that. Jagrat Swapna. For example, the waking state. You go from waking state to the dream state, but in between there is something called intermediary state, where you are neither fully dreaming nor fully awake. Isn't it? Such states are there. Some of them may be in that state now. Right? Or Swapna Sushupti, again in between state. You are not fully dreaming, you are not fully asleep. In between state. Sometimes in meditation also we get into that state. After meditation you wonder, did I meditate or did I sleep? So all such intermediate states are taken care by the term Adi. So there can be any number of states in between. All those states, that prapancham, the world which you experience, yat prakashate, that consciousness which is illumining these states, jagrat swapna sushupti. Now Brahmaji is telling, pay attention to that consciousness. So when you are in the waking world, don't get carried away by what you see in the waking world. Pay attention to The consciousness in the light of which the waking world is seen. Yat prakashate. Right? Make this a habit. Make this a habit to pay attention to that light of consciousness because of which you are aware of things. Now this is a habit which can be cultivated. Now what is the habit we have cultivated? Showing interest in that which is seen in the light of consciousness. Now this is the habit we have cultivated. Therefore all the senses are extrovert. Mind has been trained in extrovertedness. Unknowingly we were searching happiness outside. And in order to get happiness from outside, naturally the mind has to be extroverted. For so many births this has been going on. Now what is Brahmaji saying? Stop your foolishness. What you are seeking is right there. As you yourself, as the very consciousness, start paying attention to that. So if you have trained your mind in such a way that you are paying attention to consciousness, even when you are seeing the waking world, in dream, what will you experience? In dream also, this habit continues. Isn't it? In the waking world, if you are a man, in the dream world, what you will be? You can never be an elephant. In the dream world also, you will experience yourself to be a man or a woman. Yes or no? Why? Because in the waking world, that impression has gone so deep that I am a man, I am a woman, whatever it is. It has gone so deep that in the dream world also, you will see yourself as man or woman. You cannot see yourself as different thing. Impossible. So what has to be done in the waking world? Develop this, what you call, habit, samskar. What is the samskar? Consciously abide in consciousness, even when you are interacting with the world. At the back of the mind, a shruti should go on. See the singers and all, what do? They have this shruti box. So even when they are singing, one part of the mind is always thinking of shruti, isn't it? Some people, even when driving, they are able to talk on the mobile phone. Right? A part of the mind takes care of one thing, another part of the mind takes care of the other thing. In the same way, while living in this world, let one part of the mind just watch things happening. Let one part of the mind be just aware. Let it create objectivity. Consider yourself to be a part of the world, and just like you are seeing somebody else, you start seeing yourself also. As though you are watching a drama. Right? Start paying attention to consciousness, and more as this habit develops in you, you will find what happens. Even in the waking world, ups and downs, tragedies, so many things will happen. But because you are holding on to this substratum, because you are holding on to the reality, your mind will not be disturbed. Mind is disturbed when you forget the reality. So this technique is given here. So in all the three states, develop this habit of holding on to consciousness, abiding in the awareness. Then what happens? Tad Brahma aham iti jnatva. Always again and again reminding yourself that this consciousness is me, in the light of which everything is seen. Again and again, when you start meditating on this consciousness, what happens? Sarva bandhai pramuchyate. You become free from all bandhana, bondages. How do you become free from all bondage? What is the cause of bondage? Let us revise the previous lessons. How did I become bound? I, the infinite consciousness, because of my identification with the BMI, the matter, this is how I became bound. Now what am I doing? I am training myself to detach from the BMI. I am trying to abide in consciousness. When this happens, all the bandhana is broken. Individuality dies, identity shines forth. This point is made much more clear in the next verse. Let us chant that verse. Trishu dhamasu yad bhogyam bhokta bhogascha yad bhavet tebhyo vilakshana sakshi Chinmatroham sada shivaha Trishu dhamasu yad bhogyam bhokta bhogascha yad bhavet tebhyo vilakshana sakshi Chinmatroham sada shivaha. Yes, Trishu dhamasu, in the three abodes. What are the three abodes? Waking, dream, deep sleep. In the three abodes, these are the three triads which are present. What are they? Bhogyam, bhokta, bhogaha. These are the three things. Bhokta, the enjoyer. Bhogyam, the enjoyed object. Bhogaha, the experience of enjoying, the enjoying process. Bhoga also can be the instruments of enjoying. So these are the three things. Experiencer, bhokta, experienced object, bhogyam, and the process of experiencing, bhogaha. These are the three things. Right? Now, what is the instruction given? Tebhyo vilakshanaha sakshi. Other than these three, there is somebody else. Who is he? Sakshi, the witness. What is his characteristics? Vilakshanaha. Lakshana means property. Vilakshana means viparita lakshana. His properties are totally different. Opposite. Of opposite nature. Vilakshanaha. All these three things pertain to the matter. This Sakshi is consciousness, untouched by matter, therefore Vilakshana. So what is the instruction given? This instruction is beautiful, very, very practical. What is the mistake we do in life? In life, the mistake we do is, these triputis are there, we become bhokta, right? You jump into the picture and then get entangled. A person was just whiling away his time, having a cup of tea, just looking outside. Free time, he didn't know what to do. So one donkey was going, slowly walking by. Then he had a fanciful thinking, why not sit on that donkey? Anyway, I have free time. Let that be an experience. So he went and sat on that donkey. What did that donkey do? He just went and there was a, pit full of dirt and filth and all. That donkey just went and water was there, shrubbery area. He just entered. And this fellow also got totally, right? Now, who is this person who sat on that donkey? It is a story about each and every one of us. Right? Actually, you are a Sakshi. Who is that donkey? Your BMI. You go and sit on the donkey and make yourself dirty. So in the same way, we have entered into the world as a bhokta. Bhokta means what? He is experiencing, some bhogam is happening. What kind of experience normally we have? Sukha, dukkha, mana, apamana, isn't it? Generally classifying, we can put it as sukha and dukkha. So what is the experience? In any situation, either we are going through sukha or dukkha. Now what is being said here? It's a beautiful instruction. Whenever your mind is going through sukha and dukkha, understand you have become a bhokta. The sukha dukkha experience, The joys and sorrows you are experiencing because you have done this blunder. What is that? You have identified yourself with the BMI and thus you have become bhokta. Only a bhokta can have sukha dukkha experience. So what has to be done? Whenever you are going through sukha and dukkha, remember sukha and dukkha both are disturbances of the mind. Here sukha means the excitement when you get something from the world. Here we are not talking of Paramananda Sukha or anything. We are talking of pleasure. Pleasure coming from the world because you have got something from the world. That is called Sukha. So any Sukha Dukkha is a kind of disturbance. Any disturbance is the proof that you have got identified with your BMI. So whenever your mind is going through Sukha or Dukkha, whenever it is disturbed, understand you have done a mistake. And how to correct the mistake? Become a Sakshi. End this bhoktaship, doership, enjoyership. Stop it. End it. How? Become a Sakshi. So whenever the mind is going through very disturbed state, what has to be done? Just watch the mind. Right? Just watch. Just be a witness. Sakshi. Right? Somebody has done something to you. Maybe somebody has criticized you. In front of everyone, he has criticized you. Now, what is the state of the mind? What is your Hrit Pundarikam now? Closed lotus. And now, what all things go on in the mind? How dare he criticizes me? Now, this is the way the thinking. Maybe in the outer world, you might have not told to that person because he is your boss and all that. Right? Now you withdraw. Now you are all alone. Again and again that instance, that incident, how he shouted at you in front of everyone. Again and again you replay. Right? And now the mind comes out with reaction. I will show him. I will take proper revenge against him. How dare he does that? What does he think of himself? I am far better than him. All these dialogues are happening, isn't it? Now what is the condition of the mind? Total disturbance. Now what is the solution being said here? Be a Sakshi. Sakshi means what? Just witness. Don't identify with the mind. What all thoughts are coming, just watch as a disinterested, uninvolved witness. The moment you do this, you will find the mind becomes quiet. Within few minutes you will find the mind has become absolutely quiet. You know why? Guess why? When you are watching your mind, when you are witnessing your mind, you have shifted your standpoint from bhokta to sakshi. The moment you start witnessing, the ego dies. The ego exists only when consciousness identifies with BMI. The moment consciousness starts witnessing the BMI, what happens? Ego is dead. Naturally, bhokta is dead. Once bhokta is dead, how can you have these thoughts? All the thoughts which arise in the mind is because of the ego. Because somebody has shouted at you and therefore your ego is hurt. So who is reacting to the situation? It is the ego which is reacting to the situation. The moment you witness your mind, what happens? Ego has no existence. You have cut off the identification. You have disidentified. And once identification is gone, now you have become consciousness. And what is the nature of consciousness? Ananda Swarupa. Isn't it? Complaining is not the nature of consciousness. Complaining is the nature of ego. So what you do is you end the ego. Right? In the film theater, when the hero is crying, you are also crying. How to stop crying in the film theater? Disidentify from the entire happenings in the movie. Bas, this is what has to be done. be a Sakshi. This is something absolutely practical. Whenever your mind is disturbed, sit quietly, look within, just watch the mind, observe the mind, and then you will find the mind calming down. Right? Very, very practical solution. When you watch India-Pakistan match, right? Try out these things. See, life is full of experiments. Heart is your laboratory. You should be a scientist. Spiritual people are called subjective scientists. Their whole interest is what is happening to the mind, how to make the mind peaceful. So different situations are there, experiences in life, it is there. Every time you do this experiment, when you are exposed to a particular situation, how does the mind react? Just watch. Right? Just watch. So now the India-Pakistan cricket match is going on. India is beaten black and blue. Wickets are falling. What is the state of the mind? Again. Right? Very dejected, depressed state of mind. Just watch that mind. And then what happens? You cannot be miserable. If you want to be miserable, then don't do this. So what is happening when you do that? See, I am miserable when I am watching India-Pakistan match. Why is it that I am miserable? I am miserable because I have identified with the body. Body is born in India. Therefore, I am an Indian. Now there are 11 people who are Indians who are playing. So therefore, they are me. Now see, connection. Now once they are me, I want them to win. I don't want others to win. Finished. Now starts the entire parampara of disturbance, anxiety, worry, fear, etc. Now what are you doing? The moment you start witnessing the mind means paying attention to consciousness, abiding in consciousness, being separate from thoughts, distancing yourself from your mind. You are paying attention to consciousness. Now, consciousness, is it Indian or Pakistani? Consciousness is neutral. It is the very same consciousness which is pulsating as life in Pakistan is also. Now, where is the question of disturbance? Finished. End. Game is over. Whatever be the external result, your internal mental condition will be total peace. Right. There is no excitement, there is no disturbance, there is no dejection. You become a master of situation. Now, this is how you have to attain mastery over situation. If your state of mind is changing according to the situation, now life is full of these dualities. Jaya, Parajaya, success, failure, gain, loss, mana, apamana, honor, dishonor, praising, criticizing. This is what is world. But if your state of the mind is getting tossed up and down according to the situations of the world, then that is pure slavery. Isn't it? Now, do you want to become a slave of the situation or master of the situation? All of us want to be a master. Let anything happen in the world, my mind should be at peace. How to keep the mind at peace? This is the technique. This is the only technique. Nanyaf pantha vimuktaye. Never become a bhokta, become a sakshi. What happens when you become a sakshi? Sarva bandhev pramuchyate. Freedom from all kinds of bondage. Now, what is this bondage? Here we are talking not of physical bondage, but we are talking of psychological bondage. Helplessness at the mind level is called psychological bondage. I don't want to be angry, but I am helplessly angry. Now, this is bondage. Right? I don't want to be jealous, but I am jealous, helplessly. I don't want to be anxious, but anxiety is my constant companion. Worry, dejection, fear, I don't want, but I am helplessly doing that only. This is called bondage. Bondage means what? I am helpless. I want happiness, but I cannot be happy. Helplessness. This is called bandhana. Bandhana is not physical. It is not that somebody has tied you with a rope like a cow and you are tied there. Not that. Bandhana is psychological. Psychological helplessness is called bondage. A situation is coming and you are forced to react to that situation, though intellectually you know that should not be done. This is helplessness. This is bondage. Every moment we are suffering bondage, but we don't know that we are bound. Right. Everybody is suffering. Situations come and we are not able to handle the situation properly. We yield to the situation. We become a slave of the situation. These are all nothing but bondage. So what happens when you do this exercise? You are not changing the situation, mind you. You are not changing the situation. What are you doing? You stop to become a bhokta. This is what you do. A worldly person is always a bhokta. Therefore, he goes through ups and downs of life, miseries of life. He remains a slave. What does a spiritual person do? He elevates from the status of bhokta to sakshi. He becomes a sakshi. And the moment you become sakshi, all the worldly problems, the problems belonging to the body, mind, intellect, they are not your problems. Because you have kept it as an object. You have not made the BMI as the subject. As far as a bhokta is concerned, BMI is a part of the subject. The moment you become sakshi, BMI becomes a part of the object. You are objectifying it. You are keeping distance from it. How do you distance? Become a sakshi, become a witness. When you witness, you keep a distance. And then what you experience? When you become sakshi, you become chinmatraha. Next term you see. Tebhyo vilakshana sakshi chinmatraha. Chinmatraha means what? Pure consciousness. Only consciousness. Which we experience as I am. That is called chinmatraha. What is the nature of bhokta? I am so and so. That is bhokta. Pure I am is sakshi. No identification. You are just a light of consciousness in the light of which everything is seen, heard, etc. Chinmatraha. Chinmatroham sada shivaha. Ever auspicious. Once you are able to remain a sakshi, you experience auspiciousness all the time. Auspiciousness means what? No conflicts in the mind, no confusions in the mind, peace all the time, contentment all the time, happiness all the time, fearlessness all the time. Now this is called auspiciousness. Sada Shiva. You become Shiva only. Look at the condition of Shiva. Everywhere snake. And along with two women also. One Ganga and another Parvati. Even then at peace. Right. And what is his ornament? Everywhere it is snake. Here, earring is a snake. And what you call? In the jata also there is snake. And what is his talcum powder? His makeup is Shmashana Vibhuti. What do you call that? Ash from the cremation ground. But look at him. Peaceful, blissful. Isn't it? You will find that the eyes of Shiva is half closed. That is also significant. Half closed means what? One part of the mind is always observing the individual. One part of the mind is within, another part of the mind is outside. So let one part of the mind always witness your every action, every thought. One part. Then you are connected to God. And once you are connected to God, bliss is yours forever. Right? More of it we will see tomorrow. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramayah Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhagave Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritangamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari